You can become almost immortal or even one-shot entire groups of enemies with some of the weapon choices in Ghost of Yotei. That is why today we're going to take a look at all of the weapons you can unlock in this game, both the regular melee, range, and the quickfire ones, as well as how to make them way stronger. Also, we're gonna go over a quick ranking of which are the best and the worst, so without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, let's begin with the Katana, since that's your starter weapon, and to be honest, after playing with it a lot more, I think that only a couple of techniques here are truly needed to get like 90% out of what this weapon has to offer. This includes the starting Yaido and Heavenly Slash. Yaido specifically because it's a great way to stagger some of the enemies early on. It's also going to give you a counter to the enemy glint attacks until you get other better options. So it fits that role really nicely, and then you can get an extra point into the Heavenly Slash right away, literally the same one from Ghost of Tsushima. So for one spirit, you can have that really nice attack that bypasses all of the enemy defenses. You can even make it stronger with some lightning strikes later on with one of the charms that makes a comeback from Tsushima as well. But everything else from this point on, I don't really think is truly needed. To be honest, I think this weapon falls off quite a bit now with the lack of actual stances on it. You can go with some of the EI strikes all the way at the bottom, and what this does is that it now gives you a 6 sequence attack that kind of has some pauses in it every 2 attacks. So in this case, you're going to hold up for that glint, do 1-2 attack, wait for another glint, another 1-2, wait another glint, 1-2 again. It's just that this playstyle doesn't fit that well, as you will see with the spear in just a little bit as well, with the way enemies swarm you all the time. That's why I'm saying by mid-game it's kind of falling off pretty hard. Now, next we have the dual katanas, which you unlock via the way of the dual katana right after the prologue, and even though it's useful against enemies with spears, it's definitely one of those weapons that shine a lot more with deeper investment into its skill tree. But early on, it does have a very strong option that makes it an outlier, and that's going to be Takezo's dual slash. You get to unlock this from Takezo's mythical tale that you can start from any of the dueling trees in the game, but the earliest is going to be here just west of your homestead. Once you defeat that, all of the remaining ones will be revealed on the map, and you can just follow that to unlock the dual slash. And this is what brings this weapon category from like a B to pretty much A+, because dual slash is just insane. For 1 spirit point, you have one of the lengthiest animations in the game. During that whole animation, you are completely unstoppable, and you deal so much damage that you can literally jump from one target to another while still in that mythical attack. Now, there are a couple other abilities here that are worth it, one of which is the early Tempest Strike. What makes this great is its final attack in the chain that is completely unblockable, so it is useful against any target regardless if you counter their weapons or not. However, to truly make it shine, like I said before, you will need to go deeper into the tree all the way down to dual Tempest Strikes, which will extend that with 2 more unblockable attacks after it. So this is when dual katanas really become a powerhouse, and when you can use them more freely regardless if you counter your enemy's weapons or not. Also, on the way, we get automatic deflecting strikes against enemies with spears. However, it's not quite as snappy as Jin's version used to be back in Tsushima. It seems that if enemies are just slightly off angle from the center, they may still hit you with the spear even if you still have this on. So yeah, that was a lot more reliable in Tsushima. But moving on to number 3, next one is definitely going to be an S tier. This is the Odachi, and you get to unlock it during the Saito Brothers mission on your very first visit here at Master Yoshida's dojo in the Tokachi range. But during that whole mission, you're going to unlock both the weapon as well as one of its starting abilities called Bulwark Stance. However, this weapon absolutely destroys enemies within just a couple of upgrades. Most important including the unstoppable strikes, which will now make all of your attacks with this weapon completely unstoppable, which means they cannot be interrupted. And then also the improved Bulwark Stance, which now has a follow-up to your triangle hold, basically a double quick slash with a step follow-up. So it kind of makes this very slow weapon much quicker and much deadlier. But as you would expect with a massive greatsword like this, basically this doesn't require you to switch to anything else to counter your target. targets. This is the all-around counter. If you hit a target, it doesn't take too long to break its defenses regardless of the weapon they hold. In addition to this, it's also the only weapon in the game that has a full-on block feature, so it's kind of like having both the weapon and the shield all into one, and you can just sit there and tank most of the incoming attacks with the exception of red ones and enemy fiery attacks. But overall, just amazing to have, and it just becomes even stronger once you go deeper here with Unstoppable Force. So now you can even recover your health bar when you get initially damaged. If you hit enemies in time and take them down, you can recuperate the majority of the HP you just lost. Now, it does have a special ability of its own called the Mountain Breaker that the sensei will eventually teach you, and even though you don't actually need this because of how OP this weapon is, you can still get it for the head bonks, because this thing will absolutely smack an enemy and just like throw them into the ground with so much force that you can most of the time one-shot pretty much everything. So if you want to do that, pay attention to this new quest here that you can go ahead and filter by here in the map menu that will pretty much give you the path of the Odachi. So this is going to also be during the Saito Brothers. At some point eventually you're going to get it, and for this you just need to complete 3 objectives, which includes liberating the Marshland Homestead, the Harunoi Mill, and also to get a bounty called Junpei the Snatcher, basically on this side of the map. Once you completed all 3 of these, you can go back to the sensei and he's going to teach that to you right away, even give you an achievement at the end of it. So this is if you want to just make the Odachi a lot stronger. Which brings us to our 4th weapon, the Kusarigama. This is going to be something that you can unlock during the Kitsune encounter. Once you get to Teshio Ridge for the first time, you should see the way of the Kusarigama appearing on the map, and you can just go ahead and talk to the sensei over there. He will actually teach you both how to use it as well as one of its starting abilities. So just like in the case of the dual katanas, this is another category that truly starts to shine once you invest a lot more into its skill tree. To the point that once you get to the mid to end game, it becomes truly diabolical how strong it is. Even stronger than the Odachi, at least when it comes to clearing out entire groups of enemies the quickest. But specifically in the meantime, we do have, this ferocious whirlwind, which is actually pretty good, not for damage, but to AoE counter disarm every enemy around you. So let's say you have enemies off screen or multiple of them charging up yellow attacks, just pulling off a triangle area sweep with this via the whirlwind will automatically disarm everybody around you if they do those yellow attacks. So very useful, and the range is way higher than everything. The next one that's also diabolically strong is Lethal Talons. Now you have a scorpion assassination from afar. Triangle circle, pull in the target scorpion style, just hack and slash it, and it's pretty much done. You can even upgrade this to instantly one-shot brutes, and eventually via Iron Talons even make it cost absolutely no spirit whatsoever. And also Ferocious Cyclone, which is going to be the upgrade to the Whirlwind. This is going to give you 3 more follow-ups that will truly make it shine by this point. And if you couple this with the Oily Fire, you're going to just go through everything, because that fire just goes through defenses, and by this point you're just going to wipe out entire camps of enemies like they are nothing. That's why by this stage you're not even going to care about anything any longer. So overall, if Odachi was S tier, this is going to become S+ by the time you reach the end game, even though it may start as a B-. Now, technically, the weapon does have a special ability of its own, which is Claw and Talon, that the sensei teaches you. It's pretty much close to the one you use in Stealth, same button combination, quick takedowns, gives a bit of disengaging at the cost of 1 spirit, so it's a nice to have nonetheless. But this is what you're going to unlock after you completed the way of the Kusarigama. Then at the end, the sensei gives you the path of the Kusarigama, for which you need to complete 3 objectives, 2 involving liberating these 2 camps right here. So this includes Snowdrift, Spring's Hideout, as well as the Soya Port. And the 3rd one is to just unlock any technique points in the Kusarigama skill line. Just go at any altar, get 1, and that's going to provide a new mission back at the sensei, during which you're going to learn that new secret ability. And finally, for our last melee weapon, we have the spear, or the Yari in this case, which you're going to get from the Ishikari Plains once you progress a bit in that Oni part of the questline. So the Oni questline here will eventually unlock this sensei here by this island to the west that you can go ahead and interact with and basically get that weapon. Now, I'm not gonna lie, if somebody told me this was the weakest of the weapons, I would probably not disagree too much. It's still one of the most stylish, but it only sounds better on paper. In practice, not so much. Let me just show you why. In this case, Typhoon Kick and Typhoon Sweep are both amazing. They throw enemies on their back, but there are two problems. One is that they require a bit too much of a wind up, and by the time you reach the end game, you're not going to have enough time to squeeze in all of the attacks and moves that you can do with it, even if you get upgrades to shorten those animations. The sweep is actually much better, but the problem with it is that you use it once and then the target knows how to counter you. By that point, you're going to have to switch your style and do something else. So if you're just trying to mess with the enemy and not care too much about clearing speed or dealing the highest damage, then Yari is definitely one of the tools that lets you play with your targets the most. But otherwise, there are much better options for everything else. However, there is one ability here that somewhat redeems it, which is its special skill called Thundering Wave. So this is going to charge up to an enemy, impales them, launches them for a lot of damage, and interrupts enemies around us for 1 spirit. So really good even against boss enemies, which is why it kind of redeems some of the drawbacks from the Yari. So to actually get that ability, the sensei needs to teach it to you. So after you have unlocked it, you're going to now get the Path of the Yari from the sensei, which has 3 more objectives nearby. In this case, liberating these 2 forts, the Higashi Lumberyard, as well as Bold Kaji Forge, as well as just unlocking any technique point from any altar to the Yari skill tree. Once done, you're going to get a new mission from the sensei, which you can go ahead and complete to unlock that final ability. Now we have 2 more weapons on the list that are an absolute blast to play with, no pun intended, but they come in a little bit later in the narrative, specifically once you get to the Saito brothers part of the main story, specifically bringing you right here to the Oshima coast. Now I'm not sure how you do it, but in my case, I was only able to unlock this portion once I finished fully both the Kitsune and the Oni quest line. So you have to completely finish everything else up until that point, which is then going to unlock this next part. So in this case, the Tanegashima, which is the rifle, is given to you pretty much on your first mission there in the coast. So during that mission, you're going to unlock this by default by just following the story. Meanwhile, if you want the pistol, in this case, you're going to need to find Matchlock Murata right here in the Oshima coast once that mission is over. So complete this side tale, and that's also going to give you the Tanzutsu. But in the case of the rifle, I never thought I would play, I don't know, Call of Duty in a Ghost game, but here we are, and this is just as OP as you think it is. It's why it's such a game changer and why it was historically such a game changer back in the 16th century as well. You basically just load in. It does take a long time to actually load in bullets, but you're going to absolutely one-shot everything. It doesn't matter what you shoot. Maybe some of the boss enemies will get a couple of those shots in before they collapse, but everything else is just gone. And also the range on it is extremely good. The precision is really great. So where you actually aim it, that's where the bullet will hit. Meanwhile, for the pistol, I kinda should call this maybe a shotgun because of its range and precision, but this is what you're gonna use on a quick fire mode. So this is even better than the Kunai, by the way. You just go in and you quickly tap R1 in this case. It's going to just blast an enemy to the face, and more often than not they will get staggered, so they get open to executions if you have appropriate charms to that, which just makes it that much more fun to play with. There is even an extra skill in the standoff line that you can unlock to basically use your pistol as well during standoffs on the final enemy, further extending that kill count by 1. So overall, very fun to play with, both of them, but this one in particular. Anyway, while we are on the subject of weapons, you could have literally bought 2 ranged weapons on your very first visit to the Shadow Inn, but you can also find the same character in pretty much any other friendly inn, like for example Ishikari Market. So if you go ahead and talk to this NPC, which is Ren the Boyar, she initially has both the Hankyu as well as the Longbow to sell in exchange for 300 and 2000 mon. So if you don't have that money, farm a couple of contracts and then go ahead and buy them. They pretty much function exactly the same as they used to back in Tsushima, so not much to talk about it here. A surprise ranged weapon will also be the throwable bombs, which you can actually get from the bomb maker. This is a side tail that also spawns in the Ishikari plains. After you start that whole Oni quest line, at some point you are going to get it, and this is going to just give you the throwable explosives. I'm not gonna lie, they are OP, so OP that you should probably step back. It also has an upgrade line, add NPC that will give it a lot more range, damage, and also ammo count, so it's totally worth it to go in and grab everything. In terms of some of the other options, we already talked about the quick fire options. So one of them is going to be from a bounty called Crow Genzo that you can get very early on, also add a shadow in. Going in here into the Jade Grove, you can go ahead, have the encounter, defeat the boss, and you're going to unlock the Pocket Sand, or in this case the Metsbushi. So this is one of your first quick fire attacks that's very useful at blinding targets. It works both against regular enemies but also in one-on-one duels, which is why this literally carries you so hard until you get some of the other better options. Speaking of which, we can actually also get the Kunai further up north during the whole Kitsune part of the quest line, specifically via the side tail called the Winter Farms, right here at this farm that you're going to find not too far off from the main inn. But specifically when you get here, the NPC over there will give it to you right away. Why Kunais are so amazing, just like in the previous game, is that they immediately destroy defenses. So one throw, defenses are down, go in and just deal a ton of damage. Unfortunately, it kind of lost its ability to throw multiple kunais unless we have some other charms I've missed. So if we do let me know down below in the comments, but initially you just have to throw them one by one. Of course, we also have to talk about one of the strongest abilities in the game, and that's going to be the Oni Flame. This is what's going to set your weapon on fire, and this is going to again completely bypass defenses on every hit while it's up. But this is going to be a lot later into the Oni quest line, pretty much almost like the second last, I believe. So at some point you will need to meet a certain character at the Matsumai camp, and during that quest you're just going to get the Oni Flame without having to think about it too much. You're just going to get it as a natural part of its progression. But overall, really strong, and you can set any weapon on fire to deal that high amount of damage. This is why I said the Kusarigama really starts to shine once you get mid to end game, when you have all of these combos to work with. And finally, for the smoke bomb, as well as the ability to actually see behind cover, so our stealth detection, I guess, this is also going to be a story unlock, but much later into the Kitsune quest line. Again, about second last mission in the chain of those events. A certain character will teach them to you, and then you can start using them in combat. They will even have a skill tree that you can invest some points into for even better enemy detection, like Jin used to have actually at the start of Tsushima. So overall, that's how you're going to get all of these weapons and powers and also make the most out of them. But let me know down below in the comments if you have a different ranking in mind, if you think that some of the weapons that were weaker or stronger should deserve a different spot. In the meantime, as always, if you enjoyed this video, subscribing to the channel and activating that notification bell really helps a ton, and I'll see you guys in the next video.